finally working. Thank God.
Yeah, it took us so long to start recording because we kept talking about other stuff. Like we can't even remember how we got to that
It's
the topic that we were
insane
talking about.
because we started talking about celebrities and then we got to traveling and then our dreams and career.
Yeah.
How even? Oh, it's raining.
Yes. Also, spooky season is in full effect. I've seen some posts by my friends. Some of you aren't on Patreon, but those that are, Nikki has a huge ass sunburn on her back and she keeps forgetting about it. That's Nikki's spooky season. Her skin is on fire.
Eventually, it's gonna start peeling. I'm gonna wait for that.
Yeah. But back to spooky season, I have a lot of friends that are posting, not even friends, but like ex-office mates, co-workers, colleagues that have like posted shit about them getting haunted. So that's fun for them. I don't want it to be me.
Of course
So
not. Oh, by the way, welcome to Creepy Conversations. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Kalai. And this week, since, we're in our spooky season week, we're gonna continue with our ghost stories.
That was a really weird...
Because I forgot what I was supposed to say. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about ghost stories. And last week, if you guys are new listeners, last week we were talking about ghost stories from Singapore. This week we're going to be talking about ghost stories from Thailand. Our source for this episode is No Sleep Reddit. You know how we love No Sleep Reddit. So yeah, we got our stories from there. So I don't know how to start with this one.
I don't even know.
Okay, so this one is written by Chimpledus. Chimpledus. Chimpled.
It's
US.
difficult
Or
because I don't even think that's a fucking word.
Yeah. And I'm just reading it. But yeah, the title of his or her story, their story, is a warning for backpackers coming to Thailand. So I live in Thailand, not as an English teacher, NGO worker, or professional expat of any kind. I'm a local Thai. So if you're expecting some ladyboy joke from the title, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But I feel like I should let you foreigners know about what I encountered last weekend. I know you foreigners don't normally believe in the supernatural, but I believe the subreddit is different. People come here to listen to extraordinary accounts because it's true, right? So please, this person is over-explaining it. So please listen to my story. This knowledge might save your life when you next visit Thailand. I love Thailand, by the way. So this one's for us. And they're also like, weed is legal there now. So
is it?
Yeah. I lurk on Reddit because it entertains me to read about the other parts of the world. I'm just an office worker living in the capital city of Bangkok, wearing a tie, working on Excel, always being scolded by my American boss. This dude has hatred for his boss. There's like the passive aggression in the sentence.
I feel like we would be friends with this person because from the over-explaining to talking about work, that's right in our lane.
But my home is in the rural countryside. Lots of green paddy fields and sugar palms in the distance with a backdrop of gray hills. What is wrong with my mouth? It is the soothing sight of my childhood. I was raised there by my parents who are rice farmers. I used to bring their buffaloes to graze in the fields just so I could doze all day on its sturdy back. That sounds great. It is a place of my nostalgia. As an office worker, I try to visit my parents as often as I can because they're old now, much too old for farm work. But still, they wouldn't lay their hands. Imagine if you're 60 but have to hunch over the field under the scorching sun to plant the rice stalks all day from dusk till dawn. Anyway, I visit just so I can bring some joy to their hearts and hand them a little souvenir from the city. Usually it's a little bit of money I can spare after paying for my rent, but when I'm running short, I would buy them some American sweets or cookies that I'm sure they've never tasted before. Sorry for the diversion. Back on topic.
I swear, this person, did you write this? Are you ghostwriting?
They're our spirit dude. Spirit person. So it is the past weekend that the things become strange and terrifying. I could barely believe it if it hadn't happened to myself. If my uncle or auntie from the village told me that they'd seen what I'd seen, I would nod politely and secretly deride them of their suspicion. But now that it happened to myself, I don't know what to believe. Last Saturday, I planned to visit my parents early in the morning, but my boss told me that he needs to have his PowerPoint done by 3 p.m. Just perfect. It would take me 5 hours to travel from Bangkok to my hometown by train, and the last one leaves at 2 p.m. So I went there into the office and worked like I never did before. I skipped lunch and turned out the PowerPoint and immediately rushed to the train station. I made it in time to board the train. However, that means that I will have to walk to my parents' home when it's dark. And that makes me nervous. It is known that no one should walk around after dark in my village. Now, before you criticize me, I'm not a superstitious man. So he is a man. I'm a city dweller, an office worker, a man of science. I'm more scared of physical threats, like being mugged or murdered, even if it's unlikely to happen in the lonely, quiet tracks of my parents' house. The nervousness comes from my upbringing. In my village, and many others in Thailand, we believe in folk tales and ghosts. Yeah, like us here in the Philippines, too. A lot of, like, very similar... Like, even the way he described, like, his childhood hometown is a little bit...
It's
like,
very reminiscent of ours.
Yeah.
Not
our childhood, but like the places in the province. Instead of a doctor, my parents would bring me to a shaman whenever I'm ill. Dude, this happened to me too. Once when I was young. I feel like we've all experienced this. Like, instead of going to the doctor, our parents like brought us to like a shaman or something.
Low key.
Yeah. Like mananambal and shit. That's what we call them. When I was suffering from dengue fever at the 13th year of my life, the old crone of a shaman had crouched over me with her teeth stained black from betel nuts.
What are those?
I don't know what that is. BETEL. So I don't know what them are. But yeah. Breathing over me with a sickly sweet stench. She then declared that I was plagued by a malevolent ghost who would soon kill me if it wasn't appeased. My parents immediately cooked up a feast and brought the offerings to pray before the local banyan tree, lighting candles and asking monks to perform a prayer service. They said that cured me and was the reason I'm alive today. Of course, I don't believe them now. I know that dengue fever is caused by a virus transmitted by a mosquito. This one is still very common in the provinces in the Philippines too, though.
And it's not just that kind of illness. It's whatever illness, actually.
Yeah, whatever. That's true. But still, once you're raised in that kind of belief, it is hard to shake it off. All throughout the slow, trudging train journey, then the bus journey on the winding road through the darkened countryside, I couldn't find a comfortable seat. I kept fidgeting and checking my phones over and over. I told my parents that I would arrive late, and they told me that it might be better if I move my visit to the next weekend. I then told them that I'm already on the train, and they told me that it's better if I spend the night at the train station. I grunted and I didn't reply. His parents were like, we don't want to see you today.
Oh my god. That's so weird. Okay, go.
I think because it's the late night and shit. Anyway, I'll read on so we'll find out why. I was determined to make the journey that very night. I wanted to surprise them. I wanted to prove the village wrong. Yeah, that too. I probably would be like, if my city was safe, I'd do the same, like prove them wrong. Some shit.
The pride.
Yeah, but let's be honest, I'd be scared too. So I was determined to visit them and prove that the village belief was outdated, to make a difference with my superior beliefs from the city. Looking back, I realized now that I was just using those excuses to calm my fears, because when I got off the bus around 8 p.m. and saw the track leading through the paddy fields towards my parents' house in the darkness, all my reasons became flimsy and fragile. We had streetlights only on the main road, but nothing on minor trails. This feels like the province in the Philippines, right?
It does.
It sounds like. I felt a childhood fear tugging at my heart. Why I didn't listen to my parents, I thought. Without thinking, I picked up my phone to call them again, but there was no signal. Not even a single bar. Usually I would get 3G internet even when I'm up here. I blame the signal failure. We get plenty of those. Cicadas were chirping and insects began to gather around me, so I couldn't just stand out here to be a sitting blood bank. So gripping my talisman around my neck, I went off the dark trail that I would normally be so familiar of, that would remind me of home. It didn't feel that way now. That was when I realized that I've never wandered out here before in my life. The 1 kilometer walk to the house never seemed so long before, and I felt like a little boy once more. The trail was between 2 paddy fields, and I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners aren't familiar what paddy fields are. They're tall grasses, so they are scary to walk through, even during the day. Yeah.
And when we say tall grasses, sometimes it's like taller than you.
Yeah, taller than your house. Because it's pretty tall.
Yeah.
Is it taller than your house? Taller than like a 1-story house?
Depends on how tall. Like, it can get that tall.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Each locked in a low level of water to help rice grow, and the first 100 meters was easy enough because the street lamp illuminated the way. But beyond that, I had to use the torchlight on my phone to light the path in front of me, just in case there were snakes or scorpions. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's scary, because there are snakes there and big rats on like paddy fields.
Yes,
so.
The rats are insane because they look like cats. They're huge.
A whistling wind blew across the farm and I shivered at the sound. I crept along through the narrow trail until I saw the shadow of 3 sugar palms on my right, near the halfway point. I sighed and made a little smile, beginning to feel foolish for being so afraid. Just as I was easing my grip on my talisman, the world plunged into darkness. The street lamps were all extinguished. Power cuts are common in rural Thailand, but my heart froze, holding my breath in my chest. There was only my phone torch left in front of me and the moon and the stars that offered too little light for my city dweller eyes. I looked around widely, throwing my torchlight everywhere, and an old prayer chant came naturally to my lips. Then I remembered that there should only be 2 sugar palms instead of 3. Shit. I shone my light there and found 2 threes. I heard a plop, a dipping sound in the paddy field behind me, and spun around. I saw 2 long stalks of legs. I looked up to a pale, naked, emaciated body and arms as thin as chopsticks. I couldn't scream. My prayers stiffened on my lips and I fell into the muddy paddy field. I dropped my phone. I leaned down
That's the
Yeah,
worst.
so it's basically dark now. It leaned down, long spidery legs folding, and it came into the beam of my phone torchlight. Its eyes were pale like the blind. It had wispy hair, and its horrible, horrible mouth had shrunken into a tiny round hole smaller than my finger.
Like that. What is that? Is this
It wheezed air.
Slender Man?
Yeah, it does sound like that. Except it has eyes and hair. It wheezed air through the hole in a shrill whistle and seemed to speak. I don't like this.
Why did you choose this?
When I couldn't reply, huddled in trembling silence, it whistled again, more shrilly, a tortured tone, and brought up two white hands as big as palm folds. To make a wide gesture, putting hands together in prayer that we Thai people are famous for, the sign meaning greeting, thanking, or begging. I knew what it wanted. An old folklore was drilled deeper into me than the constructs of modern day society, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even control my bladder or utter a prayer.
Oh my god, did he pee himself?
Yes. It's a nice way of saying that he peed himself. Its expression changed and the pale eyes grew bloodshot, and the whistling suddenly stopped. Out of the hole of its mouth, a long red tongue rolled out and never seemed to end until it was as long as my arm, then even longer. Bile rose through my throat and I wanted to vomit, but that physical bodily reaction woke me up from my paralysis and I finally screamed. I nodded furiously. I put my hands together to Y in return, and words came out blurting out of my soul. I promised it a feast. I told it that it would never starve again. I swore that monks would bless its soul so it would no longer suffer. The tongue stopped extending and finally retracted. Its hollow eyes met me for a moment and finally stood up with those spindly legs and swayed off into the blackness, the plopping fading, and was gone. I stayed where I was, soaked among the rice stalks. I didn't know how long I stayed there, but when the street lamps finally came back, I scrambled back onto my feet, grabbed my phone, and sprinted to my parents' home. According to the myth, what I have seen was a lost soul. It would roam the spirit lands, forever hungry because its mouth was too small to eat anything. So on Sunday, I immediately went to the temple to pray to alleviate its suffering and brought noodles as offerings placed before the 2 sugar palm trees near my parents' home. The noodles would fit its tiny mouth. I'm back in Bangkok now, and I begin to wonder what would have happened if I didn't know of the ghost or couldn't remember the village's teachings. It would have killed me. There's no doubt to drain my blood, open my guts, and suck my intestines. So here's my warning to you, traveling foreigners coming to Thailand. I know you like to travel to rural parts of Thailand for an exotic cultural experience, but remember that these are obscure areas, cut off from the wider world. Whenever you happen to meet a ghost, pray for it and give it offerings. Be more open-minded and don't wear your rationality as a token of pride. There are many things that you don't understand in the world beyond the scope of cold, hard science. Don't be arrogant. Listen to villagers and respect their ways because superstition might save your life like it saved mine.
That's insane. I love...
Bring snacks everywhere. So if you get attacked, just give them snacks.
Always carry candy with you. I mean, I do. Because that's what my mom taught me to keep your breath smelling nice.
Tic Tacs. It would fit their tiny mouth.
Yes! Oh my god. But could you imagine? I feel like if I was in his place, I would not remember.
Been dead.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't even try. Like, it would not register in my head that I needed to do something. Like, I would just want to run and escape, but I don't think I'd remember a childhood folklore or whatnot, You know what I
Same.
mean?
Same. I feel like if that, like in the Philippines, usually it's like a manananggal or something.
Yeah.
Like if we encounter like a mythological creature, I wouldn't think of like,
where's its legs?
how? Yeah, like I would be like, holy shit, it's real. Oh my god, I'm gonna die now. Like those are probably the last two things that I would think of before.
Also, obviously it's very different because a lot of the stuff I would say they practice in other Asian countries is like chanting, and there's a certain prayer to help you with it. But then for us, it's more ritualistic. Like, for example, if we take Manananggal as the creature, we don't pray or whatever. We look for the lower half, and then you basically fucking season the shit. You put, right?
Salt and like, whatever.
Or garlic or what.
Yeah.
You fucking season the
delicious.
thing. Exactly. And who in their right mind carries salt with them? Like, if I saw the lower half, what the fuck? Let me just carry you home with me so I can salt you up. What?
Would you rather see the upper half of the manananggal or the lower half?
I think the lower half. I think I would prefer
Obviously.
the lower half
Because it can't fight back.
Yeah, it won't even walk. I don't think it walks.
Yeah, it
stands
I think it just
there.
stands.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be so fucking scared because that would mean
That's their
that
most
there's a
vulnerable
manananggal
part.
near you. Yeah.
I don't think it would be near though.
It'd be out. Does it have like a
Because
security sensor?
I think they can feel it when someone
something's
saw
near
it.
their lower half.
Yeah. But they wouldn't necessarily be close to it because they try to hide their lower half. That's the vulnerable part.
That's true.
But who carries salt? I'm still wondering, why salt?
Because it hurts when you put salt on your wounds.
True. But who carries salt? Anyway.
Okay, it's Nikki's turn to scare us.
I hope I deliver this well because you literally gave this to me while we were recording a shorty. I had no chance to read it, but it's still from Reddit, posted 6 years ago by Ribonachi, and it's entitled Never Sleep Near a Thai Temple. I don't even know what this is going to be about, but based on the title, it probably has something to do with a temple and sleeping there. Okay.
Let's go.
So, it says here, I'm not entirely sure I believe in ghosts, to be honest. And even after all this happened, I'm still a little skeptical about ghosts and hauntings, though I'll bite on some of the other paranormal things that go down in the woods or the mountains at night. So, of course, this changes my mind a little. For a little background, I'm half Thai and half American. My mother is full-blooded Thai and have lived there for most of her life. She moved to U.S. after I was born in Bangkok. Every 2 years or so, my sister, my mother, and I fly to Thailand to see my cousins, my aunt, my uncles, and my grandparents. They're fairly poor, so they can't afford a plane ticket to see us in America. And besides, it's a nice vacation for my sisters and I, so we can get away from our rigorous academic lives and meet family again. In 2012, we flew down to Bangkok and drove to Ayutthaya, another older city, to get to our bed and breakfast sitting on the Chao Phraya River. My mother had chosen it specifically because it wasn't too expensive, and it was a beautiful view of the oldest Buddhist temple in Thailand, which was just across the river. I would have thought she'd have known better. By the time we got to the bed and breakfast, it was late at night. Someone had taken my luggage on accident, so we were all laughing about how confused they were going to be. Would you laugh at this? I think I would be like, fuck, I need my luggage. Come on.
Yeah.
So, anyway, opening a suitcase full of books and expensive bras. She really had to flex the expensive bras in general are already expensive, so for her to say expensive bras, that meant
Books
something.
are expensive too. So
Yeah.
she's definitely flexing.
We just have been in a plane for over...
just bra, no underwear?
Well, I think she probably has multiple luggages, and then that specific one had... How many bras do you bring if it's just books? And
we're both like, ah!
How big was that luggage anyway?
Yeah.
Jeez, okay. So yeah, we'd just been in a plane for over 24 hours, driven for another 2, and all of us were exhausted. There were only 2 beds, so my sister crashed on one, and my mother and I crashed on the other. By then, it was almost 4 in the morning. That night, I had a strange experience. I'm not sure how to describe it. I knew that I was still asleep, and my body was still. My mother was next to me, and it was still nighttime. Yet I could feel myself being dragged out of my body.
What the fuck?
It was like someone had gripped me by my feet and was trying to pull me out of bed while leaving my flesh behind.
Oh, shit.
What? I would like to think that she meant this as in like pulling her soul, her conscience and shit.
Yeah.
But that's... Okay.
That's something I've never encountered before.
Me too. Like,
It's usually just holding your ankles.
Yeah, and even like the out-of-body experience, you don't really feel the transition of you leaving your body, or if you do, no one is trying to take you out of your body, but this one's like a whole nother level.
That's fucking scary.
It is.
Like, oh, I'm leaving my physical body.
And the crazy thing is, she was beside her mom because they shared a bed. I wonder how you would feel like you would want to ask for help, but at the same time, how do you even?
Can't.
Yeah. So I remember fighting against it, trying to stay in my body for what seemed like a long time. It was a little scary. Only a little girl. Sorry.
I'd be emptying my bladder.
Sorry. A little scared. Okay.
Okay, she's flexing.
Yeah, so it was a little scary, as if someone had reached inside and was repeatedly yanking me away.
That is not a... Even physically, that is fucking scary. You don't want to be, like, yanked away.
I wonder what her definition of very scary is, if this is still a little, like, come on! Anywho, the room was lit with a weird yellow glow from the street lamp. Things seemed bright and harsh in my memory, but I couldn't see what it was that grabbed. I remember watching my hip pass by my line of sight before I was suddenly released and I fell back to sleep, I guess.
What the...
Okay, how do you fall back to sleep after that? Okay, this is wild. So the next morning, I thought nothing of it. I get sleep paralysis frequently, but this was different. Oh. Okay. Now it makes sense, because she's kind of like, I have practice.
Yeah.
So in sleep paralysis, I had always tried to move, but couldn't. This was the exact opposite. I was trying to stay still, and something else was trying to move me. For whatever reason, it didn't bother me much. I dismissed it. I went down the riverside and had breakfast, sat on the deck and called my boyfriend, decided to take it easy and forget about it. Then my mom came downstairs and sat on the riverside with me. The two of us had a short conversation and can't remember what about. Somehow, we got to the subject of the temple. It was old, dating back to the 1300s. They said that Pi, is this Pi, P-I, or P?
P.
They said that P ghosts like to hang around the temple a lot. Most people don't like to sleep around temples at night, my mother told me, especially old temples. Very spooky. At the time, it seemed like just another footnote. My mother was chock full of information about the cities around Bangkok and Korat, where she lived. Still, it stuck with me for a while, thinking that the temple across the river, with its high walls and its ancient history as a place where all the dead of the old capital were taken to be buried after Burma burned the city to ashes. For the next couple of nights, things went on as normal. We went sightseeing, visited tourist spots, and rode on a ferry with some old friends of ours. Then one day, my mother asked me while we were alone, "Do you remember the first night at the bed and breakfast?" Why would your mom ask that? That's so...
I would be like, no.
Why?
I would pretend to not remember.
Right? And then she went like, "Of course I do." I said, "I still vividly remember being yanked out of my body." She didn't say this, but it's like,
Yeah.
that's what she recalled. It's not an experience you easily forget. No shit, man.
Yeah, no shit.
It was so strange the first night. I had a horrible dream that night that there were two young men in our room. They were digging through all of our things and looking at us. And I could feel that they were dangerous. Her mom said quietly. I frowned and listened. "I remember trying to protect you and your sister. I wanted them to leave. In my dream, I couldn't move, so I prayed to Jesus asking for help that they would leave us alone." I'm having fucking goosebumps just reading this. Like,
me too.
why is everything so interconnected? So my mom told me. She was a recent convert to Christianity, having been Buddhist most of her life, and I had converted that summer as well. Yet it had never crossed my mind to pray while I was attacked. My mother was a very spiritual person, and she was incredibly open to the supernatural. I was less inclined. Still, I was curious. "Did they leave after you prayed?" I asked. My mother nodded, and that was the end of that. I thought on it, trying to assess the validity of her dream. While I was a Christian, I was also studying to be a scientist. After all, it could have been just a dream. Yet the fact that she felt spiritually attacked at the same night I had also felt spiritually attacked while sleeping near a Thai temple after being so mentally exhausted seemed like an odd kind of coincidence to me, especially after experiencing the sudden release from whatever it was that had attacked me in my sleep. Thai folklore is full of ghosts, and perhaps that was what my mother drew upon. Perhaps I just dreamed the whole thing up, and perhaps becoming a new convert to a religion had left me open to spiritual ideas and fears. Either way, while that was my first time encountering ghosts in Thailand, it wasn't the last. I haven't asked my sister if she dreamt of anything, but perhaps one day I will. The end.
Okay.
I don't like that it kind of validated her dream.
Yeah.
And she didn't even have to prompt her mom about it. It was her mom that was like, "Hey, do you remember?"
Yeah. And it was a different type of like it was a different type of haunting, right? Because she was pulled from her sleep, and then her mom basically was like, saw them getting attacked and shit. Yeah.
And it wasn't even like physical. Usually when you experience a poltergeist, the things that they do happen to you physically, but for hers, it was like, they're trying to get my soul. They're trying to grab my soul away from me.
Yeah. It's kind of the same. Like the thought of them, like her giving the advice that you shouldn't sleep near a Thai temple. It's kind of the same here, because I remember like it's more dangerous for your spirit to be around the church like during the nighttime, because like what was the explanation for that? Like I remember it was like bad spirits try to get in churches or something like that.
I think so.
It has something to do with that.
Because
like,
they say
so
like,
how do priests?
Churches are like portals or something.
Yeah,
that's what they say.
Or something like that. So how do priests, like, because priests live near churches, like basically beside churches. So
they probably get taught how to kung fu spirits in your sleep.
their houses probably have like the Wakanda orb, the barrier, the invisible barrier.
Now I'm curious what her sister experienced. If like her mom said they right, but she never asked, and this was like 6 years ago. Maybe we should comment what the fuck happened to your sister. We need part 2.
There are a lot of like, what do you call this, stories about Thai temples, like when I was searching for like Thai stories, but I didn't really read them.
Right.
Because their titles weren't that interesting. It wasn't like that. Like her title was like, don't sleep near a Thai temple, so it makes you like,
It's like, why not?
Some were just like,
You know what's crazy about these connected dreams kind of thing? I experienced a similar shit with my sister, but this was in my house. But it wasn't a dream. It was just the same experience, which is wild to me because I thought I was the only one. I could hear. So I used to share a room with my sister, and we slept in the same bed, and I could hear heavy breathing on my ear, and it's not like a snoring kind. And the heavy breathing, I could also feel the air in that area. At first, I thought it was my sister, like, because we slept beside each other, right? And I thought she was like missing her spot and just trying to hog mine. So when I looked, she was facing the other way. Yeah. And I'm like, how the
yeah.
What is going on? It's like, science, please help me explain this. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm asleep. I don't care. I don't want to see anything. And then I think I just got like, I scared myself to sleep, I guess. And my memory is bad, so I forgot about it. But a few weeks later, my sister was like, hey, do you get like weird experiences or like weird feeling in the room? And I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't get that was where she was getting at. And then she shared her side of the story, same timeline, and she felt the exact same thing.
Shit.
On her other ear, because she was facing her left side, I was facing the right. Yeah. But she also felt the air on her ear, and she felt the heavy breathing, and she thought it was me.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, why? So does that mean it was
the thing
between
you
us?
Slept in between you guys?
But like his mouth is like what? On the side of his
he was like
I hate how like this is supposed to be scary, but we're making it comedy, but at the same time I know for a fact that we're scared shitless. Yeah. Anyway.
Jesus. But yeah, we have a final story from Thailand. Actually, so this is how bad my memory is. I thought I gave Nikki this story. That's why I opened about the Maranangal in the first story. And then when Nikki started reading her story, I was like, oh. And I asked her right before. And I completely forgot.
My God, what is wrong with us?
Jesus. But yeah, so our final story is about the Krasue, a horror from Thailand. So this was submitted by DeuVult92, so DEUS_VULT92. If you guys want to know the sources, we will tag it on our website.
Okay.
So his story begins, Thailand is a beautiful country and a wonderful place for vacation. If you ever stay in a location near the woods, don't go out at night. Me and a couple of my buddies, Tom and Lucas, had just finished college and were looking for a nice, relaxing vacation. I convinced them to come with me to Thailand. I'd been there a couple of times before, and it was far too beautiful and relaxing. We decided to check out the Chiang Mai region in the north since I'd never been up there. We stayed in a small village that held a motel for tourists. It was a bit of a shack, but it had air conditioning, so I didn't complain. The room had 2 beds and a couch, and Tom was the one who got to sleep in the latter. There was no way any of us wanted to share the beds with another dude. We wanted to explore the forest when we arrived, but it was already late in the day and we were exhausted from the long trip. We decided to chill out for a while and explore the village. The woman who owned the motel was the only person there who spoke English, albeit poorly, and was nice enough to show us around and babysit us and ignorant Americans. Panu and I had almost the same experience. Like, the hotel we stayed at in Bangkok, they didn't speak English. So when we checked in, we were like, how do we communicate? But we booked like prior to like getting there. So they just like looked at our...
You just show
Yeah. And whatever. Yeah, that's it. She spoke to us before settling in for the night. The only thing you guys need to know is the important rule we have. Never go out at night. Why not? Lucas asked. Because forests have dangerous animal. You no want get snake bite or spider bite or nothing, she replied. We didn't think anything of it as we prepared for bed, but right before we settled in, Tom noticed something as he looked out the window. You guys come look at this, he said. The village was seated up on top of a hill, which allowed us to get a spectacular view of miles of forest beneath an ocean of stars from our window. But there was one thing in particular that caught our eye. There appeared to be a strange light coming from several miles away in the moonlit forest. It was a white light which appeared to be pulsating as it moved through trees and bush. What do you think it is? Asked Tom. I haven't got a clue, replied Lucas as I shrugged my shoulders. I'm guessing it's some dude with a lantern, I said. I thought it was against the rules to go out at night, said Lucas. Maybe he isn't from the village, I responded. Or maybe he just doesn't care about the rules, said Tom. We stared at it for a few minutes before shrugging it off and going to bed. The next day, we awoke with the sunrise, had breakfast, and headed out towards the forest. Next to the path leading out of the village, there was a pit with a high-waist bamboo fence surrounding it. We held our breath as we walked by, unable to stand the horrid stench it emitted. It was filled with what appeared to be animal entrails, rotting rice, dead lizards, and maggots.
Ew.
Blah. Why did they have to put their waste pit right next to the path? I complained. We spent hours exploring the forest, examined the wildlife that could be found. We found snakes, wildcats, a troop of monkeys, and lizards, including a monitor lizard. The forests of Thailand were so rich with life compared to those in the northern U.S. I would be scared to like roam around a forest without a local.
Would you though? If you were with us, would you though?
With my friends, probably, but alone, no way.
Yeah.
We would return to the motel each night, and each night we would see the light coming from the forest, always in a different spot, always pulsating, and always moving. Eventually, I asked the motel owner about the light. Oh, I don't know, she responded. People here see the light too. They think it's a ghost. A ghost? I asked. Oh, it's just superstition, she replied. Indeed, Thais were very superstitious people compared to Westerners, especially in the rural regions. I believe in the supernatural, but as a science major, I always raise an eyebrow of skepticism to claims like this. Nonetheless, it triggered my curiosity. This is also another thing that Thais and Filipinos, and I feel like Asians have in general, that we are very superstitious compared to like other
We have rich
parts.
culture.
Yeah. Yes. One day we stumbled upon a dead leopard. Like, sorry, they're lucky because they've a dead leopard. A leopard they got to like stumble upon. You know, they could have.
I think I would just go back and be like, I found what's in store for me here.
Yeah.
I'm lucky this is dead.
Yep.
I'm going to head back.
Yeah. What if it wasn't that dead, you know? That I would go back. It looked like a fresh kill, and it appeared to have had its organs devoured from the gaping hole in its abdomen. What could have killed a leopard like this? I asked. You see, I would have yeeted out of that place upon seeing that gaping hole. The other two just continued to examine the creature with puzzled looks. Examine? What if that light in the forest was actually a poacher? Asked Tom. And why exactly would a poacher only take the entrails? Am I saying it right? Now I'm like, yeah.
I think so. What is there another way to say it?
Entrails. Like entree.
Are you French? Only the French say when they see an E.
So his friend said, it looks like an animal attack, but why would an animal only take the entrails? Right? So that's why you need to leave. But yeah, we had no answers, nor did the motel owner. But my curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to know what was causing the light and if it had anything to do with the leopard. See, you just know that they're not Asian because we would be like, no.
We're not fucking with this,
yeah. We know something dark happened to those entrails. I bugged my buddies to join me and sneak out during our last night at the village. They didn't want to join at first, but after calling them chicken and pansies, I finally coerced their inner masculinity to join me. That's all it takes? Jesus.
Oh my God. Their masculinity.
Their masculinity.
This is why men die first.
Because they are not going to continue the sentence. Fill in the blanks for me. We armed ourselves with machetes. I'm like machete. Machete, don't. Machete. Sorry. Machete, right?
To be fair, if this was in our language, it would be machete.
Yeah. So yeah, with machetes seethed on our belts, and we quickly snuck out a couple of hours after sunset. We brought flashlights with us, but only intended to use them when we absolutely needed to. What? It's like they wanted to die. They knew there was a leopard, but they still wanted to go out there at night. The moonlight was sufficient for most areas, and we didn't want the entity to know we were approaching. As we drew close, I noted two strange phenomena occurring around us. First was that the nighttime forest was usually noisy with insects chirping and frogs croaking. Has begun to dim down to near silence. The second was the sudden drop in temperature as we drew near. In Thailand, 75 Fahrenheit is considered cold weather, and anything below 70 was freezing.
Can we...
I'm like,
y'all Americans?
Yeah, I'm like trying to... So 70 minus 40 something, right? Yeah.
I can't even spell the word.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit to Celsius. 70 would be around 20. Yep. 21 degrees Celsius for 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it is. It's not freezing, but that's considered cold in our areas.
Asia.
Yeah, in Asia. A little freezing, yeah, I would agree. Like, we would be wearing jackets.
Yes, because our normal temperature would be somewhere around 25,
28. Yeah, 20. That's like the comfortables. 25 to 28. Comfortable.
That's like
the normal. Yeah.
True.
As we drew near, I could actually begin to see my breath. We were starting to shiver, having left the room with only t-shirts on. It was theoretically explainable by natural phenomena, but I began to suspect that something beyond science was at work here. I nonetheless continued on, expecting to find a natural cause for these observations. These people. That expectation began to wither as we were now close enough to observe the light source more clearly. Not only was it pulsing, but it also appeared to have tendrils of light surrounding it. They moved like plasma through the air. The main source was obscured behind a bush, but it became quite clear that there was a figure standing within it. A Thai woman, young and beautiful. Only her face could be seen from over the bush. A 3-foot radius around her was the light originating from. It pulsed about once per second, dimming briefly before returning to normal. Her gaze was toward the ground. My heart pounded with excitement, astonishment, and fear. What was she? A ghost? An angel? I would be running out the door, out the forest, if this were me. We stood there in silence and amazement until somebody broke a twig underfoot. The girl's eyes shot in our direction. She knew we were watching her. She stared for a moment before she darted behind the bush she was hiding behind, and her obscure figure began to drift away through the forest. I was more than curious now. I was hooked to a line, and I could only be satisfied by understanding the thing I had seen. It's like, you know those fishes with like the light? What are they called? Anglerfish or something?
Are they? I think, yeah, that's
the light, the fish with the light.
Angler,
she's like that.
Yes, it's an anglerfish.
Yeah, and they're like the fishes that get attracted to those lights. The other two had felt it also and followed me without hesitation when I directed them. We had our flashlights on now, walking swiftly in pursuit of the entity. These guys wanted to be killed.
You can tell that they're not Asians at all.
At all. We watched as it entered into a cave on a cliff. See? Okay, I understand you follow her, because whatever, but as soon as she enters a cave, I'd be like, this is a trap, my guys. Let's go home.
Exactly. Oh my god, I just have to comment on the fact that you use the word "my guys" because it reminds me so much of Trixie Mattel and Katya because they complained like, "What is this?" They don't like the term "my guys" because it doesn't make sense.
Actually, me too. That and broski and bruh, I hate that, but it's now embedded in my vocabulary. Like, I can't stop myself. Anyway, it entered into a cave on a cliff wall and stopped just outside of it. We knew from horror movies that dark forests were a bad thing, and caves in the middle of them were even worse. Bro, I'm scared. Yeah, said Tom. I don't want to go in, said Lucas. Well, do you expect me to go in alone? This guy is an asshole. He's like, he wants to die and he's bringing his friends with him.
Yes. He's really using peer pressure here. I don't like him already.
Me too. From the pansies part, I'm like, I would not be friends with this guy. But yeah, it's not too late to turn back. We can forget this even happened, said Tom. No, we can't forget, and my ignorance will haunt me if I fail to understand what that thing was, I said. It will also kill you. We paused for a moment. Yeah. Looking at one another as if drawing straws in our minds. I finally volunteered. I'll go in under the condition that you two owe me all I can drink for the rest of the year. This guy is such an asshole.
Oh my god, what a dick.
Yeah. They stood for a moment before Tom spoke. Fine, I'll buy you drinks. If you want to go in, you can. We'll wait for you here. And then leave him.
I would. I'm sorry, I would.
You're
just
being
text
way
me when
too
you're back.
Yeah. With much hesitation, I slowly walked into the cave, praying under my breath. I was now shaking, not from cold, but fear. The odor came quickly, the same as the one emitted from the pit of rotting entrails, but it was far stronger. I coughed as I covered my nose with my shirt. Before long, I noticed the bottom of the cave was littered with animal bones. I was about to chicken out when I saw the back of her head protruding from behind a rock. I stood and stared for at least a minute, not knowing how to respond. Finally, I managed to whimper a hello to the entity. Why would you even...
What if this was an animal? Let's say this was not an entity. Bitch, your fucking dinner. Your fucking midnight snack by now.
Exactly. I turned around and I saw its face once more, but this face was no longer that of an enchantingly beautiful Thai woman. It was hideously burned, charred black teeth partially exposed through deteriorated flesh. Her eyes have shriveled in their sockets. The creature slowly drifted into full view from behind the rock, each additional inch causing my heart to sink deeper into my chest. The creature's body wasn't a body at all. It didn't even have a neck. Instead, the creature's entrails dangled from its windpipe and hovered above the ground. Its heart was beating, the light pulsing along with it. Its stomach and intestines slowly squirmed as if the creature was digesting something. Chunks of adipose were attached to its viscera, which dripped with a mixture of blood and fat. My jaw dangled as I stood there, frozen in terror at what I saw. Its lungs contracted as it let out an unnatural shriek. It lunged towards me, and I finally turned around as I sprinted as fast as I could out of the cave. Run, run! I shouted towards Tom and Lucas. I'm like with the entity. Like, kill them! They were like warned not to go out at night. They did. They're disrespecting your area.
Yeah. Well, wait, what is this creature called again? It's like
the Krasue. Krasue. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the equivalent of the Manananggal.
Manananggal. Yeah, that's why I mentioned the Manananggal earlier, because I thought I sent this to you. Jesus.
Oh my god. If I was his friend, I'd
be so pissed. Like, yeah.
If he survived,
I'd push him towards
it's like, sorry, bro. We need to distract her.
Yeah. You made us stay. They saw the creature behind me as I ran past them. He ran past them. And without hesitation, they followed behind me. We ran and ran, occasionally stumbling over a log or brush. Brush? Or, I think he meant bush. A log or bush. But always making sure that we were together and that nobody had been left behind. You ran past them. The creature certainly.
So much.
Me too. I want him to die.
Like, if this was a movie, he would have been. I hate him. I swear.
The creature certainly hadn't, and it was no more than 200 feet away at us anytime. Anytime? Eventually, I spotted an animal with my flashlight, and I began running across the forest. What is happening to me? Which began running. I'm so angry at him that I can't
read anymore.
You know what? That's an excuse. I can't read, period. Which began running across the forest floor with us. It looked like a feral pig. Hoping to make a distraction, I pulled out my machete, caught up to it, and struck it in the neck. He killed an animal because of his stupidity.
Was that necessary?
Yeah. It shrieked in pain and stumbled, but I kept on running. Before long, I began to hear the animal shrieking furiously behind us. I turned my head back to look and saw the entity had captured it. I stopped in my tracks to catch my breath, my friends joining me. We watched as the animal was suspended in the air by the creature's tendrils of light, which were ripping out the animal's intestines. I would not look back. I would keep running.
Also, how could she... I'm annoyed he killed an animal and then watch it
die. What a fucking asshole.
Dude, you had a machete the whole time, and you didn't even think, oh, maybe I should try this on the entity because I'm trying to run away from it. No, I had to kill the animal and sacrifice. Oh.
Exactly. Or he could have hit the machete on his own head.
I'm angry at this. Ugh.
Yeah. I felt sick and wanted to vomit as I saw it begin to devour the raw viscera. We continued to run. Right. Yeah. We continued to run onwards back to the village, clearly visible on the hill, with lamplight emitting from our room. Gasping for air, we burst into the room and locked the door behind us before collapsing to the floor in exhaustion. We closed the curtains, dimmed the lights, and sat in our beds, not daring to even try sleeping. The other two were silent as I prayed and clutched the crucifix around my neck. What was that thing? Whispered Lucas. A demon? A ghost? A monster? I have no idea, I responded. We sat in the darkness for an hour or so before we saw a pulsating light emerging from the forest. We quickly hid under the beds and held our breath. We could hear strange sounds from outside as if the creature had been devouring something else. Within a few minutes, it stopped and the light faded. We continued to hide under the break of dawn, and we stayed in our room until we saw other people coming out of their houses. I told you not to go out at night, the motel owner said in anger. We should have listened, I replied. Yeah, fucking right.
Oh my god! I swear to God, this dude, like, I wonder how the creepers are feeling right now because of this person. Because
he's such a fucking asshole.
Annoyed. Yeah, like, what a dick.
Exactly.
We should have another poll for this. Like, would you rather he did not survive this experience or...
Yeah, I wish it was Tom who was telling us the story instead. Like, oh, my friend got killed. The other villagers also seemed aware of what we had done. They stared at us angrily as they began taking rotten food to the pit just outside the forest, which was now empty. We left southbound to Pattaya, where I spent the next few days taking great liberty in my free drink privilege. I would not, if I was whoever that agreed to give him free drinks, I would not, because you almost killed us, dude. So yeah, we tried our best to sleep, but nightmares kept waking us. Any encounter with a rotten smell or a light in the darkness brought me dread. Serves you right. Eventually, I went to a temple and spoke to a monk about what I had seen. He explained that in Thai mythology exists a creature known as the Krasue or Krasu. I think it's Krasue. Right?
I think they pronounce everything, yeah.
Yeah. Or Grasue. As the legend goes, a beautiful woman who lived centuries ago was burned at the stake. A witch tried to save her by casting a spell, but did so too late. Only her head and inner organs survived the fire. Her spirit is said to haunt the forests of Thailand and is always hungry. She devours the entrails of animals along with rotten carcasses and rotten food. Thailand is a beautiful country and a wonderful place for a vacation, but if you ever stay in a location near the woods, don't go out at night. You know what? In the comments, people are angry at him too.
Good. He's such a dick. Like, and he's so smug about surviving this that he's like, oh, I'm enjoying the free drinks. Like, bitch.
Aren't you like worried about the village? Because you basically led the Krasue back to the village, you fucking asshole. Like, what's happening to them now? You just left.
And he killed an animal.
Exactly. He's
he should be banned from going
what's
back.
His name again? Deuce Volt 92, you fucking asshole. I hope you're having a hard time sleeping every living day of your life. I'm so angry at you. He literally put the lives of other people, not just his friends, but like the people living in the village. Like, such a fucking... Anyway, that's our final story. If you guys have any feelings about any of the stories that we covered, send it to us at creepyconversations.com. We have a submit form there, and we do prefer if you guys send it there.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources are going to be found there too. So yeah.
And also, if you guys have any stories that you want to share with us, don't forget to send it to our website or at our socials as well. That's Creepy Convos for Facebook and Twitter, and Creepy Conversations on IG. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcasts to. Videos of this episode and other bonus content is available on patreon.com/creepyconvos, so subscribe to that as well. And thanks for creeping, you fucking creeper.
And remember, there's something always watching you. Also, if it was a manananggal that they encountered, they would have been toast. Yeah.
Maybe they should experience that. Or just him, because his friends seem okay.
Yeah. Dude, come here to the Philippines so that you'll meet the manananggal. So yeah. Bye.